It's nothing better than spending a rainy night in Alabama with a bunch of deplorables. This barn's pretty lucky. That's why I recommend the judge we come back down here. Look, tonight I'm here as a private citizen because you've seen what all the powers that be are talking about the last couple of weeks. Let the folks in Alabama decide for Alabama. Now, how did we get there? Remember, last time I was here was the night before Judge Moore's big victory, or a couple days before Judge Moore's big victory in September over Luther Strange, almost a 10-point win. After being outspent $32 million to $2 million. And all the politics of personal destruction, right? But we hadn't seen anything yet, had we? They weren't going to sit there and accept that Judge Moore had won that runoff, were they? What were they going to do? You know what they want to do? They want to destroy Judge Roy Moore, and you know why? They want to take your voice away. This is not about Judge Moore. It's not about Donald Trump. This is about you. This is about you, 100%. This is about you. They're taking your voice away. Excuse me. Can the CNN producer please keep it down in the back? Come on, guys, you know I'm just kidding. God bless you. Come on, CNN, you know I'm just kidding. Fake news. We got them all here. By the way, they're all here today. All of them. Right? Financial Times of London, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. Now, why are they down here in Alabama? Why are they down in Fairhope on a rainy night? You know why? They understand that you're the power, the real power, behind the greatest nation on earth. I was in Scotland last week talking to the 50 big swells in Scotland, right? Really good folks, run Scotland, nice thing. And all they want to talk about is the deplorables. All they want to talk about is the silent majority. All they want to talk about is you. And you know why? They understand you're mobilized. They understand you're angry. And they understand you're going to do something about it. The day of just taking it silently is over. That's what the opposition party up here, the opposition party media, and that's what the establishment understands, Republican and Democratic. If they can destroy Roy Moore, they can destroy you. They're trying to send a signal to every young man and woman in this country. If they're going to stand up for their people, if they're going to stand up, that they're going to be destroyed. And what they've tried to do is try to make lies about this whole movement about economic nationalism. So we're ethno-nationalists. You have to remember, I take out a number 2 pencil and write it down, opposition party. Economic nationalism does not care about your race, your color, your ethnicity, your religion, your gender, or your sexual preference. Here it cares about. That you're a citizen of the greatest country on earth, the United States of America. They never want to talk about the facts. They never want to talk about what the global project has done. Globalization. And the globalists in Washington, D.C., that's what this race really comes down to. It comes down, are you going to support a guy like Doug Jones? By the way, is Doug Jones a Democrat? No, I've got a question. You certainly couldn't tell it from anything he's advertising or running around, right? You couldn't tell that Brother Jones has been with the Clintons for 20 or 30 years. Right? Supporting them. No, just like any Democrat, when they want to run, they're all conservative. They're all nationalist, right? They all support the troops. They're all for law and order. Do you believe any of that? Let's talk about the Republican establishment, because they're the ones that first came after Judge Moore. Let's talk about Jeff Flake. Did he sign a check today, $100 to Jones? Right? What do you say? Put country ahead of party? Come on, brother. If you're going to write a check, right? Don't give the man $100. Are you kidding me? Hey, Flake, this is why your approval rating in your home state is like 11%. No. Man, you're a total embarrassment. If you're going to write a check. Support somebody. Flake has hated Donald Trump from day one. Flake has hated this movement from day one. He wrote the book, the anti-populist, the anti-economic nationalist book. Came right out of the box, first out of the, trashed all the deplorables, trashed all the silent majority, trashed everybody associated with this movement. Remember, Flake is the guy that the day before the election, they asked him, I think it was MSNBC or one of the networks, asked him, hey, we're going to, make a thing on if Hillary Clinton wins or if Donald Trump wins. And he laughed. He said, we don't need to do the Trump one. I'll just do the Hillary Clinton winning. That's Jeff Flake has done nothing but run the President of the United States down since the President won. And then he comes out at the last second and says, I'm going to give $100 to a Democrat. But this tells you all you need to know. The Republican establishment and with the Democratic establishment, they think America's in decline, right? And they're comfortable managing that decline. It is the working men and women in Ohio, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and yes, right here in Alabama, that rejected that. Make America great again. The silent majority, the deplorables, they're not comfortable, and they will not accept America's decline. Amen. They're going to fight tooth and nail. And Senator Flake, the reason you're 11% in your own state and Kelly Ward was beating you by 27 points is that you don't get that. All this stuff about Jeff Flake, Kelly Ward would have beaten you by 25 to 27 points. I don't want to hear about Jeff Flake. He could have gone to be a better candidate against a Democrat. You had no chance of winning. That's why you stepped down. Let's talk about another beauty. Willard Mitt Romney. Now, I want you to understand something. It was Willard Mitt Romney's comment yesterday, his tweet or whatever it was, that, and the only reason I'm going there, Mitt, because you started it. Mitt, you had to go there. All the insults you made about the President of the United States, put all that in back of us. He interviewed you for Secretary of State, everything's fine, but no, Judge Moore's got to run, you got to jump in here. Honor, what did he say yesterday? Honor and integrity. Honor that Judge Moore lacked honor and integrity, and that's why he couldn't vote for him, right? Couldn't support him. Judge Moore is a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. Judge Moore served his country in one of the toughest wars we've ever had, Vietnam. And he went over there for his country, his state, and his family. Mitt, that's honor and integrity. And by the way, Mitt, while we're on the subject of Vietnam and honor and integrity, you avoided service, brother, right? You served, okay, Mitt, here's how it is, brother. Now the college deferments, you know, that's you know, we can debate that, but you hid behind your religion. You went to France to be a missionary while guys were dying in rice paddies in Vietnam. Do not talk to me about honor and integrity. And now I'm going to get personal. You ran for commander-in-chief. You had 5 sons, not one day of service in Afghanistan and Iraq. We have 7,000 dead and 52,000 casualties. And where were the Romneys during those wars? You want to talk about honor and integrity, brother? Bring it. Bring it down here to Alabama. You have the guts to get on the stage. You have the guts to get on the stage of a man that served in Vietnam, and you expect us to believe honor and integrity? Judge Roy Moore has more honor and integrity in that pinky finger than your entire family has in its whole DNA. And you know why he's on Judge Moore. He's still bitter about Donald Trump. Embrace it, Mitt. He is President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, something you so miserably failed at. I cannot close this section of the talk without mentioning my favorite. Thank you very much. You know, he likes being, Mitch likes being called Leader McConnell. No, in Washington, they all call him Leader. All the consultants and all the lobbyists all run Leader McConnell. Leader. He likes being called Leader McConnell. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Hey, Mitch, you just Mitched us. McConnell started, it was Chuck Todd at the opposition party NBC. NBC of Matt Lauer fame, right? Wasn't it odd? Was it NBC with the Billy Bush tape that gave it to the Washington Post? Was it not the Washington Post that had some of these things about? No, there's no conspiracy. That's all just in the natural order of things. Let's be right, okay? This whole thing was a setup. This whole thing was weaponized, right? You know that. Folks down here in Alabama know that. This is the Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Washington Post. Even Chuck Todd of NBC, of Matt Lauer fame, Chuck Todd, he even said it looked like it looked like a coordinated hit. Because Mitch McConnell was out 57 minutes later, saying Judge Moore should drop out. When Mitch McConnell said on Sunday, let the people of Alabama decide. This is a very tough crowd down here tonight. I thought sitting you folks down and making less honorary. I guess that's not right. Mitch McConnell from day one, and this is what you got to understand with Flake and Romney and McConnell and the whole crowd. This is the scam. They don't mind giving up a seat to a Democrat. You know why? They don't mind being in the minority party. They don't mind being out of power. They don't. Because here's the joke. They can make as much money on the way down as they made on the way up, right? They would just assume, as long as they can control the apparatus, right? They'll be the minority. Donald Trump won in Wisconsin and brought Ron Johnson across the finish line. He won in Pennsylvania and brought Toomey across the finish line. He won in Missouri and brought Blunt across the finish line. He won in North Carolina and brought Burr across the finish line. Mitch, you owe your job to Donald J. Trump. But he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about that. The Republican establishment campaigned for a Democrat for 4 solid weeks. And we're going to hold you accountable. You're not going to be able to walk away now, Mitch. Mitch, it's going to be a little harder than just saying on a Sunday show, let the folks of Alabama decide. The folks of Alabama were always going to decide, Mitch. Right? You know what changed their mind? You know what changed their mind? It was the numbers. When the polls started coming back. Right? That's what changed their mind. They have no interest in what you have to say. They think you're a bunch of rubes. Right? They hold you in total contempt. Can anything show they hold you in more total contempt than what they did to Judge Moore? Remember, it's not Judge Moore they're trying to shut up. It's you they're trying to shut up. If I had to go through every weak-willed individual up on Capitol Hill, we'd be up here all night. But hang on. But he brings up a good point. I've seen this crowd before. Billy Bush weekend. They all ran to the hills. They all got scared. You know what they got scared? They got scared what the opposition party was going to say about them. They are cowards. They'll never have your back. They're only using your vote to keep their power, make their money, right? They could care less what happens in Alabama. You can tell that by the trade deals they support. You can tell that by the immigration laws that they refuse to enforce. Do you think they care about Kate Steinle? Do you think they care about the economic hate crimes they foisted on the working men and women, black, Hispanic, white, and Asian in this country? Do you think they care? They do not. And let's go now to the even crazier globalist Democrats. I got to get this right. And by the way, I'm just down here. This is for the citizens of Alabama, and Doug Jones is a citizen of Alabama, and I respect that. But I can't believe this brother is running in the state of Alabama with this record. It's amazing. What planet are you on? Man, guns, abortion, immigration, trade. He's a Clinton globalist. You wouldn't know that by his campaign literature, right? Because he's trying to avoid all that. He's trying to avoid 20, 30 years of backing the Clinton agenda. And here's what the Clinton agenda is. The Clinton agenda is support a globalist elite. This is not a conspiracy theory. Folks, I went to Harvard Business School, I went to Goldman Sachs. This is not conspiracy theory. It's in broad daylight, right? They said, Bannon, why are you so angry? Why are these people, why are they so angry? Because if you're rational and have a brain, you have to be angry. It's these policies of the Democratic Party, the globalist elite, supported by the Republicans, that have helped to gut this country. And as Doug Jones has been there every step of the way, whether it's on cultural issues like abortion or guns. I've never seen a guy so radical on guns, right? How about he's radical on abortion? I mean, he's radical. Did he say anything on Kate Steinle? Did he say anything on sanctuary cities? Has he said anything on immigration besides his open borders? On trade, totally supports the Clinton agenda. 100%. A vote for Doug Jones is a vote for the Clinton agenda. And that's what the people in Alabama, to me, ought to be focused on. Not this politics of personal destruction. Compare and contrast it to President Trump. I mean, that's what we did on the campaign, right? He was way down, we got involved. I said it didn't matter, all these polls. They don't matter. Here's the only two numbers that matter. 2/3, 1/3 think the country's on the wrong track. And 75% of your countrymen thinks America's in decline. That's the only number that matters. She's the representative of a corrupt and incompetent elite. And Donald Trump, all you have to be is the agent of change. All you have to be is the voice of the deplorables. And you will win, and you will win big. You've seen President Trump in the last couple of days, right? Yeah. He understands where Roy Moore stands. He understands where Doug Jones stands. But guess what? He ain't writing a $100 check to Jones. Flake, I'm not going to be able to get off that, right? This is a referendum on the Trump program and the Clinton program. That's what it boils down to. Doug Jones is the personification of Hillary Clinton's policies. And in the United States Senate, he's going to be a voice for the Clintons. Is that what the folks in Alabama want? Look at what Donald Trump has done in 9 or 10 months. And by the way, you wouldn't know this from speaking to, the opposition party because it's nonstop. It's investigations and all this stuff they got nonstop. You can't tell what he's done in the economy. They said he could never get above 1.8, 1.9%, 3.3% economic growth. The New York Fed the other day in their forecasting said in the fourth quarter it's going to be 3.9%. I think I have this correctly, and if I don't, I'm sure the Washington Post will correct me. But I believe in the entire time they've had this one forecasting mechanism, they've never been at 3.9% economic growth. Unemployment's at a 17-year low, black unemployment's at a 16-year low. Hispanic unemployment's at an 11-year low. Wages in agriculture and in construction, particularly at the lowest levels, are starting to increase. Business investment's up 10%. Business confidence is 20-year high. It's economic nationalism. You know what he did? He stopped illegal immigration to stop the unfair competition against black and Hispanic working class people. He's got them on the run in Mexico and Canada on NAFTA. They're squealing every day in the Wall Street Journal saying Trump's being too tough, he's asked for too much, he's being too greedy. Being too greedy? He represents the United States of America. How about a good, fair deal? He's in Korea renegotiating a deal, and they say you can't do it during the time of this situation in North Korea. It's the exact time you have to. They're either a partner or you're not, right? You got to throw a little something in the kitty. There's too many of these protectorates, right? It's your sons and daughters. This post-war, rules-based international order that all the highfalutin people in the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times of London and on Morning Joe, those geniuses, right? Right? Every day they're on that. They fail to understand that's an inextricably linked network of commercial relationships, trade deals, capital markets, and a security guarantee by guess who? The sons and daughters of this audience. Whether you're serving with the army in Korea on a ship in the South China Sea, in the Hindu Kush, or in NATO, up near Ukraine, so working men and women's children that are there. How many elites' children are in that 7,000 dead in Afghanistan and Iraq? How many of the 52,000 wounded? The other day they did a study, Brown University, and Brown University is not Breitbart, okay? It is as liberal as you can get. The Watson Center, $5.6 trillion on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the rest of the global war on terror. $5.6 trillion, 7,000 dead, 52,000 wounded. I think the present value of the medical obligations we have to the wounded is something like $1 trillion. When they talk about this international order, they talk about not America first. It's not Donald Trump's an isolationist. Donald Trump's the exact opposite. He wants an engaged America on America's terms. There are too many people that have gamed the system. We're upside down on every trade deal in the world, and yet we pay trillions of dollars to support this system. The day's over. The rest of the world has got to stand up with the United States for themselves. Look at what Donald Trump's accomplished. The tax cut's not even through yet. And by the way, Mitch, the tax cut's not going to save you, right? Tax cut's okay, but it's not going to save you. These folks are not going to agree to that throughout the rest of the country. The tax cut it's working its way through the system. Trump's delivered 3.3 to 3.9% economic growth, high investment, people coming in from all over the world to build plant and equipment because they want to get ahead of the tariffs and the quotas, right? That's economic nationalism. You know, if Barack Obama had done this, what Donald Trump had done, they'd have given him a Nobel Prize in economics. Let's talk about Trump in the world. On his inaugural speech, he wrote the following words: "We're going to rejuvenate old alliances and create new ones. And we are going to unite the civilized world to eradicate radical Islamic terrorism from the face of the earth." When President Trump wrote those words down at Mar-a-Lago, where he was working on the speech, his chief strategist opined that that's a pretty big check that we're going to have to cash. Right? He says, I know. 10 months into his administration, the physical caliphate of ISIS has been destroyed. In 2014, the caliphate had 8 million people, right, between Syria and Iraq, almost in slavery. And they say, oh, he's just following through Obama's policies. Excuse me. He annihilated the physical caliphate of ISIS. And if Barack Obama had done that, they would have given him his second Nobel Prize. President Trump and the opposition party hates it, and the Democrats and the Republican establishment hate it. President Trump is doing an amazing job of turning this country around. Think about it. The America First policy has people, he went to Riyadh, he gave a speech that was unbelievable. He then made sure that people were empowered to stop the financing of radical Islamic terrorism. You've seen what's happened in Qatar. You've seen what's happened in Saudi Arabia. These allies who have never moved quickly or boldly are now taking actions on their own with American support, right? He's taken on Iran. They announced today that I think this week he's going to announce that as everybody in Alabama already knows, the capital of Israel is Jerusalem. This election's going to boil down to something very simple. Do you support the program of Donald J. Trump that Judge Moore supports? Or do the good folks in Alabama support the program of Hillary Clinton, already rejected on November 8th of 2016, that Doug Jones represents? It's very simple. It's an up or down vote. An open and closed case. When you take away everything else, Doug Jones hiding from his record, Doug Jones hiding that he's a Democrat, all the out-of-state money that's pouring in here. By the way, poor Judge Moore's $32 million versus $2. This time it's even worse, right? But people throughout the country, the hobbits, the deplorables have stepped up with $5 and $10 donations for Judge Moore. No big donors, because big donors don't want to give you a voice. The last couple of weeks have been tough weeks for some people, right? Haven't been tough weeks for me. You know, I made my decision a while ago. Like, I made my decision to stand with Donald Trump. And I said in that 60 Minutes interview, I said in that 60 Minutes interview with Charlie Rose, media, that's such a sad thing that's going on with y'all. Trust me, you will never be the same. I said, when you stand and side with a man, you side with him, right? Donald Trump's not perfect. Donald Trump never made the case he was perfect. That weekend when everybody ran to the hills, I said it's locker room talk, right? Afterwards, that stuff came out of the woodwork. You either believe Donald Trump or you don't. I believed him. The American people believed him. November 8th, he won the greatest come-from-behind victory in American political history. And with no support on Capitol Hill from the Republican establishment, right? Zero support. In fact, they've got, the House Intelligence Committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee investigating him, right? No help by the Republican establishment. In the nullification project, and they're trying to nullify the 2016 election, the opposition party, the progressive Democrats, right? All their big donors, the Soros guys, they're trying to run President Trump out of office. With a track record like that, in 9 months, are you kidding me? Barack Obama could have been there for 16 years and not accomplished this. I'm not from Alabama, I'm from Virginia. This is going to be decided by the good men and women in Alabama next week. But the whole nation and the entire world is watching. Because this is a referendum. This is a referendum. Are we going to take this country back? Are we going to return it to its former greatness? Are we going to let a bunch of elites that have pillared this country over the last 30 or 40 years, are we going to allow them to win? You have a man that I think has integrity and honor. He went to West Point. He served his country. He served his state, his community, and his nation. He doesn't need any long introduction. He's never claimed, just like Donald Trump, he was perfect. If I remember correctly, he made his national, international reputation on putting the 10 Commandments up. The 10 Commandments. It's the basis of the Judeo-Christian West. And what does it tell us? Man is fallen, and man is imperfect. I'm honored to introduce the next senator of the state of Alabama, Judge Roy Moore.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I thank y'all. I know you're standing. I know many of you will get tired a little bit of speaking, but I want to say a few words to you. I want to first thank you for coming out. You know, this has been a long and enduring campaign. Been very intense, but we've got 6 days left. And the people of Alabama are going to speak to the people in Washington, D.C. and across this nation what we're going to do in this country. We're going to bring it forward and quit sitting on our chairs in Congress and get moving and make this country great again. I want to thank the speakers that gone before me. Bill Owens is a wonderful fella. He's seen hard times and he stands for the truth. And he is a great fellow from out Nevada. Dr. Steve Bannon, or Steve Bannon, I should say. You know, somebody asked me what I thought about Steve Bannon. If he'd help me, I said, why, yes, of course.
No more. He's
a great strategist. I want to recognize my wife, Kayla. We've been married 33 years and a few days, and this is my middle son, Caleb. I want to thank Dean Young, who's done a great job in putting this together. It's been a lot of time. And I've said in the past that if I ever make a talk and this man was present, I will always introduce him, because this man is very special to me. It's Colonel Glenn Frazier. He's sitting right down here in the corner. Colonel Frazier, before any of us were born, was over in the Philippines fighting Japanese. And when MacArthur left, Glenn Frazier was still fighting the Japanese. He was captured. He was on the Bataan Death March. You don't have many people around in this country left who were on the Bataan Death March. They marched across the country and wound up in a concentration camp eventually in Japan, where he spent the remaining years of the war. He has seen hell, and he has overcome it. He was a fighter from South Alabama, and y'all give him a big hand, Colonel Glenn Frazier. I'll tell you something about Colonel Frazier. He just turned 94, and he stands for the Pledge of Allegiance. And he stands for the national anthem. And I hope we'll all follow his example. You know, we're a little over a year from the election of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was elected by the people of Alabama and the people of America to make a change in this country. But here we are a little over a year later, and what happened? We still have no wall. We still have illegal aliens crossing the border. We still have Obamacare. We still haven't passed the tax program, working on it. We still have NAFTA. We still have CAFTA. Why isn't he able to get these things done when he's tried so hard? Well, I think he does want to. No. Mitch doesn't want to. He's having a group of congressmen we call the establishment. I don't want to throw out words without explaining. What is the establishment? There's a Republican establishment. There's a Democratic establishment. Let's get it straight. Doing the same thing. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their prestige, their power. They want to stay just where they are and play a game while the people of America suffer. We've got to get a program going in Washington, D.C. You know, these politicians remind me of Christopher Columbus. You know, Christopher Columbus left Spain after he had been well financed by the king and queen, and he came to America. He didn't know where he was going when he came here. When he got here, he didn't know where he was. And when he left and went back home, he couldn't say where he had been. But he spent all the money. That kind of reminds me of the politicians we have in Washington, D.C. now. Except I won't criticize Christopher Columbus, because I tell you, he had something they don't have in Washington. He had courage. He had a purpose, and that was to discover the new world. He didn't quit with that one voyage. He came back 3 other times. And finally, he had faith. The first thing he did on December 5th, 1492, 525 years ago, was plant a cross on the beach at Haiti, where he landed. So to be fair to Christopher Columbus, I won't won't compare him to the politicians of today. This race has been a very unusual race. I mean, it's been unusual from the very beginning. I've never seen a race where so many national figures have come to Alabama. I understand we have Soros's army here. I don't know if any of these people that have left were part of Soros's army, but they're working around the state to get the vote of the people of Alabama to change. We've had, and why is it so special? It's special because it's a precursor. You see, Donald Trump did one of the most tremendous things I think anybody could do. He fought both the Republicans and the Democrats and became president of the United States. Now, I can only speak from my personal experience, but I remember when he was elected that I felt like a big weight had been taken off my shoulders. I don't know if any of you can identify with that, but it felt like we had another chance. And we do have another chance. But if we don't take this opportunity to address the issues in this country, we're going to lose it. So then comes the Senate race in Alabama, which was caused by the vacancy of Jeff Sessions on the election and on his appointment to the Attorney General's office. It left a vacancy in the Senate. And this Senate race is the only Senate race going. It's the first Senate race since Donald Trump was elected. And it means something special. It means that we're going to see if the people of Alabama will support the president and support his agenda in Washington by electing somebody that's not part of the establishment there. This race is special because there's been a whole lot of money spent in this race. When I got into this race, I had no idea. I've been outspent in every race I've ever run by about 7-1. But this race, 15-1 in the primary. When I got through the primary and I survived the primary, I thought it would be a little easier. Now we're seeing $10 to $12 million being spent by the Democrats in this race, and you can tell that on television compared to what we've raised. We've raised money the hard way. We've struggled, but we've overcome. And I think on December 12th, you'll see an election that the world won't forget. You know, when I was elected, or when I was won the primary, before that, I didn't even know about the Senate Leadership Fund. I didn't know what it was. I do now. It's to keep the incumbents in place. To keep those that have got a job, got a position, from leaving, as long as they follow. They don't want me up there. I know that. Somebody once told me, you know, some people don't like you. Because I'm a little naive, but I understand they don't want somebody up there with an independent mind, somebody that will do what they believe is right under the Constitution, and won't follow along, and that's why they don't want me. In fact, I think Mr. Bannon mentioned this. They would rather have a Democrat there than me in the Republican Party. It's different because I've seen a new low in false advertisements. It started against Mo Brooks. I wasn't the first. And as soon as I was in the runoff, it started against me. They've attacked my wife. They've attacked the foundation we started. They've attacked my judicial decisions. They've attacked my property taxes. They've attacked everything I know. And most recently, my character. I don't know if you've ever fought a spiritual battle. You know, in Ephesians it says, finally, brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this fight. There are things we just can't handle. There are things that we just can't overcome. But we've got one obligation, and that's to stand. That's to stand not just for ourselves, but for the people of this country who can't fight this battle. If you knew what kind of battles I've been fighting, you wouldn't want to be where I am. In fact, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't want to fight those battles. But when God puts you there, you have nothing else to do but to stand. There's been a lot of fake news. There's been a lot of diversion. You know, when Donald Trump got elected, what was the first thing that happened? We had demonstrations. We had protests. We had so many that by the time they wore out, they ran out of diversions till they got the Russian investigation. Now they've been on the Russian investigation for nearly a year. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't really matter if you elect Donald Trump if they keep on the Russian investigation, because we're not going anywhere. We've got to get to the issues that this country needs resolved, like health care. We need to repeal Obamacare. We need to repeal Obamacare immediately. We need to stop illegal aliens coming across our border. We don't need, you know, I heard about this kitchen table issues. You know what a kitchen table issue is? Like transgender bathrooms, that's a pretty good kitchen table issue. Like transgender in the military. I'm a military. I have served in the military. I was in Vietnam. I was a company commander. I was at United States Military Academy where I learned military tactics and strategy. And I know we do not need transgender in our military. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If I'm in a foxhole, I don't want to know whether this guy next to me is wondering if he's a woman or a man or flipping back and forth. That's not a military. We need a strong military, and it's going to affect the people of this country. Abortion. I have said very clearly, Roe versus Wade is not established precedent. It's a violation of the Constitution. I will never backtrack on that. If we can't defend the most innocent lives in our country, then we can't do anything. And we're seeing millions of young Americans killed because of abortion. Religious freedom. You know, somebody asked me how I differ from my opponent, and I said in everything. But I want to tell you one that really touches me. This is a question he was asked by The Economist. It's on economist.com. How can you reassure his supporters, talking about my supporters, that you're not out to take away their religious freedom or their guns, their culture? I'll read you his answer. I don't know if I can. I think actions have to speak louder than words, so once I get elected, I can try to do it. But look, when you talk about their Christian beliefs and stuff, that's one thing. But when you talk about their culture, I'm not sure what you mean by that. if culture means that you have to put down people, if your culture means that you would discriminate against somebody, that you would not treat anybody in the same way that Christ would do, then I'm not going to protect that. I'm not going to protect discrimination of any sort, in any way, whether it's race, religion, sex orientation, or whatever. So I'm not going to protect that culture if that's what their culture is. Now let me tell you how you translate that. If your Christian culture, if your beliefs do not accept abortion, same-sex marriage, sodomy, transgender rights in their school bathrooms, and in the military, then by definition, you are discriminatory and will not be protected, nor will your rights to own and carry guns be secured. Doug Jones was not only a Clinton appointee, but also a Barack Obama delegate. Obama in 2008 said people like us would become frustrated and cling to our guns and our religion. It's the same concept that my opponent is talking about. Right now, before the United States Supreme Court is a case called Masterpiece Cake, in which a man didn't want to address the design of a cake to a homosexual couple. And that case has been heard today in oral argument. That's the kind of thing that we don't want to give up in this country. Our religious freedom is very precious. It's very precious to our founding fathers. In March of 1775, the year before the Declaration was signed, there was a group of men in the Virginia House of Burgesses who were debating about giving support to the northern colonies in their quest for freedom. They couldn't meet in Williamsburg because they were driven out by the governor appointed by the king. So they went to a little church called St. John's Church in Virginia. There we have some of the most notable persons of the Revolution. Patrick Henry, the tongue of the Revolution. Thomas Jefferson, the pen of the Revolution. And George Washington, the sword of the Revolution. And what they were talking about is the same thing we're here today about. What are we going to do? Where are we going in this country? In fact, Patrick Henry said this. He said, the question before us is one of awful moment to our country. For my part, I consider it nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. And should we keep back our opinions at such a time as this, I should consider myself guilty of treason toward my country and an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly kings. Which way will our country go? The question before us today in this election is which way will the people of Alabama go, being watched by everybody in the nation and around the world, if we're going to change and make progress, or are we going to sit and stay where we are and then let the Democrats come back and take us back further? He said it is natural for man to indulge in the illusion of hope, and we indulged in the illusion of hope. We hope Donald Trump would get elected. We hope something would happen in our country, but now we got to do something about it. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the sound of the siren until they transform us to beast. Or listen to the pundits and people who write about these issues in Washington, avoiding them. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided. Now we know the lamp is the Word of God. Yes. But he was putting it in a secular sense by saying, I know of no way of judging the future but by the past. And judging by the past, I want to ask you one question. What has there been in the conduct of the American government in the last 10 years to justify those hopes which so many have been pleased to solace themselves? Nothing. there's no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve inviolable those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we've been so long engaged, we must fight. An appeal to the God of hosts is all that has left us. We've got to go back to God. We've got to go back to restore the morality of this country.
Make Christianity great again.
That's right. He said this. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. That's what so many people want in our country today. They want peace. They don't want to get out and fight for the privileges and things that we've been given. Why stand we here idle? What is it that the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, is peace so sweet? Is to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Amen. I don't ever talk about honor. It's something you don't talk about. It's something you just do. When I had to leave my job because I stood for the Ten Commandments, it was because the law didn't say anything about not having the Ten Commandments. Congress shall make no law respecting an established religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Doesn't forbid you from acknowledging God. Without the acknowledgement of God, you wouldn't even have that provision. It's God who's given us our rights. If government gives our rights, it'll take them from us. We've got to go back to recognition of God. You know, I've been called many names. I won't repeat them all. But because I oppose Common Core, I've been called uneducated. I've been called out of touch when I stood for the Constitution because it's outdated, you know. I've been called a warmonger when I want to rebuild our military. I've been called a racist merely for saying I would protect our borders. A bigot because I stood against I stood for the sanctity of marriage and against same-sex marriage. And I've been called a rebel because I had the audacity to oppose federal courts putting themselves over the Constitution we're all sworn to uphold. And finally, what hurts most is I've been called foolish for believing in God. See, what I think they're afraid that I'm going to take Alabama values to Washington. And I want to tell you, I can't wait. Thank you.